share with you today the journey of healing my own brain. It was a great thrill for me to get my brain scanned. And who wouldn't want to know what their brain looks like? Isn't it even more important than getting your teeth x-rayed? What if your brain had a cavity? How would you fill it? How would that impact your life and your relationships? I was at the Amen Clinic in New York City in October 2019 as a brain health practitioner from Canada. I had been studying this for some time as part of my doctorate, and this was my practicum and evaluation kind of rolled into one. It was an honor to be associated with these doctors, neurosurgeons, and brain specialists. So you go through an evaluation process before the scan, and through a series of questionnaires, they get an idea of what they're likely going to be looking at for results. They look at trauma patterns in childhood, concussions, MVAs, other impact traumas. They look at your stress levels throughout life and family history of different sorts of diseases like dementia. Well, I scored high on all of them, and they warned me that I might not like what I saw. I knew it, but I also knew that I had been healing my brain for the past decade with proper eating, supplementing, knowledge, and thinking. I started going over the SPECT scan, single photon emission computerized tomography. The scan revealed that most of the traumas of the past had melted away under my careful direction. There were shadows on the brain, and that showed areas that gave proof to where it had previously been damaged. It also showed proof that the brain had healed itself. And even though they'd seen many cases before of healing at the clinic, they couldn't hide their surprise at the extent of what they saw with mine. I knew what my brain was supposed to look like, because I'd studied this. So the neurosurgeon and I were collaborating over the scan, and that's when I noticed it. There was a piece of my brain missing. A small piece at the bottom right temporal lobe. It wasn't there. I understood what that part did. It was the part that housed functions that I always had a difficult time mastering. And I always wondered why, as a straight A student, I was challenged with some forms of mathematics. And why were certain things an unexplainable obstacle for me? Like how I would easily get lost or lose direction. It all made sense now. No longer unexplainable. I was happy to receive that explanation. And I didn't really expect it. Nor did I expect to receive the next part of the message that the QEEG, a different form of test, gave. You know how they say that when somebody loses a sense, they gain heightened awareness in another way? Well, this is what happened to me. With the lower part of my right temporal lobe partially missing, the neurosurgeon explained, through the highly active graph patterns that he looked at, that I often went into my upper right temporal lobe for the answers. And this area of the brain is actually called the God spot. It is a psychic center. So instead of working out mathematics in my head, I would come to the same conclusion or answer by feeling into it what the right answer might be. Eventually, I learned I could intuit other answers this way. I had secretly been this way since childhood. Obviously then, the original trauma that impacted my brain was in my early life. However, it also impacted the way I would use my brain. So from that point on, I used it to my advantage. It felt normal for me, though, to pull answers out of the air. I just knew things. As a teen, it was fun and convenient to know what others were thinking. As a counselor now, it's definitely a great superpower to have. In addition to all my training and knowledge, I can get down to the root of what is actually causing issues for someone, and then what to do about it. For many people, they wonder how and why some people have psychic abilities. And I don't claim that this is the answer for everybody, but it was part of the answer for me. Science helped to explain my intuitive abilities. My invisible deformity had given me an invisible superpower. When I look at brain scan patterns, it's easy to see why people behave as they do. The wounds sheltered in their skulls hide the true reasons. And in the light of trauma from an old fall or concussion that somebody's had, I understand why his personality had suddenly changed and why his family fell to pieces. I can explain to them it had nothing to do with them. It wasn't personal or intentional. It's not that your father didn't love you. He had a damaged brain. So much healing comes from that knowing that he probably actually did the best he could. And doing the best that you can takes on new meaning when you see what brains people are walking around with. I've seen common patterns of OCD, ADD, bipolar, addiction, all sorts of really common conditions emerge before my eyes. Predispositions and assaults of the brain are not weaknesses of character. It would release a lot of judgment if society could see and know the struggle of these brains. I can see dementia developing years before symptoms begin, so that it can be reversed. Yes, it can. I wish I had known this before I lost 8 members of my own family to it. And that's a big part of why I wanted to see my brain. It was like having the sword of Damocles hanging over me. When would it drop? Was I destined to get this disease too? What a family history I had. Both grandmothers, my mother, my aunts, even my sister. All endured decades of it and died with it. I lost them, and they had already lost themselves. I wanted to know, would I also lose myself? No, I wouldn't. The scan revealed I had no trace of it beginning in my brain. None. I had taken control of my brain. I knew what it needed. It was like a fork in the road for me. I had harnessed my mind because I saw that most of my loved ones who had this disease also had certain patterns of thinking. And I decided to choose something different for myself. And I help others now do the same. That's why my tagline is Know Your Brain, Harness Your Mind, Unleash Your Power. The good news, the most encouraging part of my story that I want to share with you, is that you can change your brain too. I'm wishing for all of you to one day get your heads examined. For personal empowerment. For valuable knowledge that can save your relationships and maybe even your life. To know who you really are and why.